Hello, my name is Stacey Eastwood, and I am doing my video series on desiring bodies today. I will be discussing Gail Rubin's Thinking Sex, Notes for a Radical Theory of the Politics of Sexuality, and also Disability Theory by Tobin Siebers. Gail Rubin states that in England and the United States in the late 19th century, um, during that time, powerful social movements focused on vices of all sorts. There were educational and political campaigns to encourage chastity, to eliminate prostitution, to discourage masturbation, especially among the young. Morality crusaders attacked obscene literature. They took down nude paintings, music halls. You weren't allowed to dance at the time. Abortion, birth control information, and public dancing, of course. Um, the idea that masturbation is an unhealthy practice is part of that heritage. During the 19th century, it was commonly thought that premature interest in sex, sexual excitement, and above all sexual release would impair the health and maturation of a child. Dr. Kellogg, that created cornflakes, he originally stopped that. He invented cornflakes to stop masturbation. Um, he was heavily influenced by Christian aversion to masturbation. He argued that if illicit commerce of the sexes is a heinous sin, self-pollution or masturbation is a crime doubly abominable. As a sin against nature, there is no parallel except with sodomy. It is the most dangerous of all sex abuses because it's the most extensively practiced. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and they believed that a bland, meatless diet would help prevent boys from masturbation, so he developed cornflakes. He also managed a sanitarium, but the thoughts and consequences of the great 19th century moral paroxysms are still with us. People still believe that masturbation is wrong. They still try to prevent children from doing that. They've left a deep imprint on our attitudes about sex, medical practice, child rearing, parental anxieties, police conduct, and sex law. Rubin also says that sexuality is as much a human product as our diets, the methods of our transportation, systems of etiquette, forms of labor, types of entertainment, processes of production, and modes of oppression. Once sex is understood in terms of social analysis and historical understanding, a more realistic politics of sex becomes possible. We need to understand that sex is a social construct. The ideas of sex is a social construct. It's most people think it's a biological imperative that we have to do that. We have to procreate so that we can, advance our society. But there's also other different types of sexuality other than just procreation. She also states that there's 5 ideological formations. These are sex negativity, the fallacy of misplaced scale, the hierarchical valuation of sex acts, and the domino theory of sexual peril. And there's also the lack of concept of benign sexual variation. There's just, people don't think there's a sexual variation out there, but there is. Of these 5, the most important is sex negativity. Sex negativity is huge in our country and all throughout the world. Western cultures generally consider sex to be a dangerous, destructive, negative force. Most Christian traditions following Paul holds that sex is inherently sinful. It may be redeemed if performed within marriage for procreative purposes and if the pleasurable aspects are not enjoyed too much. So we can't have fun, we can't enjoy sex, or it's not good, it's sinful. Modern Western societies have praised sex acts according to a hierarchical system of sexual value. Marital, reproductive heterosexuals are alone at the top of that erotic pyramid. So the only sex that's allowed in our society is for procreation. You're not supposed to enjoy it, or that's the way they used to believe. Individuals whose behavior stands high in this hierarchy are rewarded with certified mental health, respectability, legality, social and physical mobility, institutional support, and material benefits. As sexual behaviors or occupationals fall lower on that scale, the individuals who practice them are subject to a presumption of mental illness, disreputability, criminality, restricted social and physical mobility, and loss of institutional support and economical sanctions. So they can't make as much money. I mean, if you think about people with disability, it's the same thing. The most despised sexual castes currently include transsexuals, transvestites, fetishists, sadomasochists, sex workers such as prostitutes and porn models, and the lowliest of all, those whose eroticism transgresses generational boundaries, which is pedophilia and um, someone that likes children. Um, Paraphilia is a condition characterized by abnormal sexual desires. It's sexual deviance. It's typically involving extreme or dangerous activities. There are 547 listed paraphilia categories. I mean, there's some extreme ones. I mean, some of them aren't extreme. Some of them are just different. Pedophilia is one. Zoophilia, which is bestiality. Exhibitionism, frauderism. I mean, as long as people aren't hurting other people, I think that sexuality is open to interpretation. You can do what you want to with it. I worked in a sex shop in Oklahoma, a really small town, and I really was awakened to people's attitudes about sexuality and how negative they are towards that. I mean, it was a college town, so we had a lot of young college-age people that would come in because they were curious, or they were coming in to buy gag gifts, and they would just be horrified by different sections. And so I would always I would hear them talking, and I was, I didn't want to push my thoughts onto them, but I would always try to open their minds a little bit. They would go by the anal section, and I would never do that. And, just keep your minds open. As you get older, you might try things. There's nothing wrong with it as long as no one's getting hurt, as long as both people agree, or however many people agree. As long as, there was different types of sexuality that would come in. We would have elderly people that would come in that were having issues with erectile dysfunction, or even women that would come in that were having issues with, they would need different devices and stuff. So there's no shame in any type of sexuality, especially, disability. Disability Theory by Tobin Siebers. He says that sexuality is a major part of a person's identity. Sexual liberation is good in itself, and sexual expression is a civil right crucial to human happiness. We all have a right to have a sexuality. We all have a right for human touch. Sexuality begins at birth and it ends when we die. We don't just become sexual when we hit puberty. Young children begin touching themselves at a young age. I have 2 young kids. I have a boy and a girl, and they're 6 and 8. And if they want to touch themselves, they do that. We just try to tell them to do it by themselves, so that not everybody's seeing it. But I really believe that, older people, they need a sexuality just as much as we do. They deserve to have a sex life as long as they want to, as long as they're comfortable with it. All humans are sexual beings, no matter if we're young, old, disabled, disfigured, overweight, what skin color we have. We're all the same. We want human touch. Or in the case of asexuality, they don't, but that's a form of sexuality in itself. So Sieber also states that disabled people experience sexual repression. They possess little or no sexual autonomy and tolerate institutional and legal restrictions on their intimate conduct. Their lives are often decided for them and discussed as if they have no choice in the matter. They discuss whether they should have children, or whether they can take care of the children, or whether they should even be allowed to have sex. Whereas, an able-bodied person wouldn't tolerate that. We would never allow such a discourse on whether or not we should be able to have sex or not, or have children. We feel like that's our God-given right. The ideology of ability represents the able body as the baseline for humanness. Absence of ability, or lesser ability, according to this ideology, marks a person as less than human. The preference for ability permeates nearly every value in human culture, including the ability to have sex. The spaces in which disabled people can have sex is a major component to the ability to have a sex life. If you're in a long-term facility, or in a group home, or if they're living with their parents, they're limited to where they can have sex. They can't, look into their own sexuality. The same is true for the elderly. If you're in a home, or long-term facility, you're not going to be able to have sex. They create those spaces to where they can't have sex. They don't allow it. I had a professor of my human sexuality, and he had also been he taught classes for Planned Parenthood for over 30 years, and he actually specialized in disability, and he would talk to us about, he would have parents that would come to him after his talks, and the parents would, be horrified because their 15 to 20 or 25-year-old man, boy that was he had a mental illness, or he was not, maybe he had the mind of a child but the body of an adult, and he would be masturbating in front of people, and he was, oh, what can we do? How can we stop him? And he said, why would you stop him from doing that? But he derives pleasure from that. You know, I just think that everyone deserves to have sexuality. Everyone deserves to have pleasure, and we shouldn't stop that because of a disability or because they don't look like a normal person, or we all deserve to be happy, and sexuality is a part of that. So thank you very much.